We're going to talk about secure zero-touch provisioning for the campus using Brocade Workflow Composer powered by StackStorm. So why zero-touch provisioning? Number one, it's got to be cost. Expensive subject matter experts have to manually configure hundreds of access switches. Secondly, there's less money from inventory sitting around in the warehouse not being used. When we do zero-touch provisioning, we also improve the deployment. We adhere to common baselines, we have significantly less human errors, we have the ability to automate validation of installation, and time to deliver equals mission readiness. Let's go ahead and look at the secure campus ZTP architecture. In a typical campus, we have an area distribution switch, ADS, and attached to that is many edge access switches. Fresh out of the box, an edge access switch will send a DHCP request. This DHCP request will go to the core or distribution switch, of which that switch will insert an option 82 to the DHCP request. This DHCP request with option 82 information, which contains the port and the core distribution switch or optional subscriber ID, to signify which AES or the location of the AES that is looking for a configuration. The DHCP server will get this DHCP request, return an IP address to the edge access switch, and then send a Brocade Workflow Composer webhook that contains all the information about what it just gave out and what it knows about the edge access switch that just got attached. Then Brocade Workflow Composer, triggering off of the webhook, will start a chain of events that lastly will take an Excel spreadsheet combined with a configuration template, securely transfer that to the edge access switch, reloading it, and then the edge access switch is now fully configured and part of the network. So let's dive a little bit deeper into how we come up with the final configuration that's given to the switch. Now, we all know as network administrators, we always pretty much start out using an Excel spreadsheet to keep track of your management ID, switch locations. So we want to use what you already know. And because we built it off of Excel, you can simply do all of the features in Excel that you come accustomed to, from auto generation of IP addresses, etc. Now, inside the Excel spreadsheet, column A, that signifies what the DHCP server sent us. Okay, so that's a unique matching item that allows us to identify what switch just got plugged in. Now, we're using the option 82 information here, which we appended the circuit ID to the remote ID, which is the MAC address of the router. Optionally, you can go off of subscriber ID. That's a unique value that you place into the router configuration. And then column B is our configuration template to use. Now, we don't expect all the information to come from the Excel spreadsheet, nor should it, because a lot of the configurations are all going to be of the same thing with very few variables that are changed. So we want to make it as simple as possible. So we start with a template and then we just adjust what changed. And then column C and onward are all the template variables. Now, the column title is the variable name, and then the values in each of the cells is what we replace. Let's look at the templates. The templates we use are called JINJA. And this is basically the #1 templating on the internet. It's used by OpenStack, Brocade Workflow Composer, and it's fully documented as well. In its simplest form, all we do is use double curly braces to signify that inside the template there's a variable. Take, for instance, host name, curly brace, host underscore name, end curly brace, signifies that the host name or inside the curly braces will be replaced at runtime, and in our case, by what's in the Excel spreadsheet. Now, JINJA2 templates are pretty cool. They've got a lot of power, just like in the Excel, where you can do formulas and a little bit of logic. You can also do that in your template. Now, this isn't a full install configuration template. This is kind of something that you might do after install, but it just shows you the power that we can put comments in the template. We can also do if-then statements to say, if this variable is true, then I want you to execute this set of commands. Else, if it's not true, then I want you to reverse all the commands. So within one template, we can have a different behavior based on how we call that template. That's very powerful. In addition to that, you can do loops as well. So you can do a range of ports. So you don't have to have every line in the configuration. You can actually have the template create lines of configuration through a loop. Now let's look back at that DHCP trigger that started the whole entire workflow. Okay. So when the DHCP server got the IP request, it did something called an onCommit function that would basically packages up all of the information, the client IP, the remote ID, the subscriber ID, the circuit ID, the host name, the client MAC, puts that into a JSON structure, and then does a bash curl call. That's basically a REST API call to Brocade Workflow Composer to basically hand over all this information as well as trigger the workflow. Let's go ahead and look at the zero-touch provisioning workflow within Brocade Workflow Composer. The first step is we delay. We do this delay because we need to give the switch time between when we know it was given an IP address and when it's ready for us to do the next steps. In that time, what the switch is doing is it's going out and searching for some configurations on a TFTP server, of which we do give it a basic one, which is just a username and AAA statements that will allow us to perform a secure copy at the end of the workflow. Because we do some generic IP address giving out, we don't know what the device type is, and we have varying versions of software for each device type, so the device detection is also pretty critical. Step 3, we use that information from the show version to check all the software versions, and if they are outdated, then we'll go ahead and upgrade if necessary. And we'll do that for both the boot code and the running images. After that's completed, we'll generate our SSH keys that will allow us to secure copy. And then step 5, we'll compile the configuration from Excel with the template and then store that locally on the Workflow Composer to then secure copy that file to the device, and then we immediately reboot the device. Once that occurs, the device will come up with its final configuration and no longer go through or request an IP address. It'll be basically done and configured. I'm going to do a live demo of zero-touch provisioning. Here's Brocade Workflow Designer, where I created the workflow. Now let's go ahead and look at our switch. I've got one here, and let's verify that it is fresh out of the box. I'll do a show config. It's empty. Do a show flash, and note that it's on 8030J in the primary image. Our baseline is going to be 80040 alpha, so it will upgrade that. And then lastly, if I do a show IP SSH, we'll notice that SSH is disabled. This is the default condition when you get a switch from the Brocade factory. I'm just going to go ahead and reload this. Okay, here we see the webhook came in that triggered the workflow. Let's go ahead and expand that and watch the workflow in action. We'll go ahead and speed this up just for demonstration purposes. Okay, the switch is up, the delay is going off, and after the 90 seconds, you'll see that it checks, grabs the version, checks the boot code, checks the image. The image was not current, so went ahead and upgraded it. And then the next thing that will happen is the configuration, or the SS keys will be generated, and then the configuration transferred to the switch. All right, so the switch should be up and running. Let's go ahead and SSH and verify. Great, since it's brand new keys, we're going to go ahead and say yes. Type in our password. And there we go, we're in the switch. We'll enable, we haven't set an enable password, just the initial get in. So, but let's do a show run, and there we have it. From our template, we have a switch that's configured. Granted, it's not a complete configuration, but you get the example. Great, that's it. That concludes our video. Thanks for watching.